so I never got to that master's in economics, never got into that business world. And Coach Holtz was the first coach to hire me, and he was the first coach to fire me. I never set foot on the NC State campus. So that's a great question. I'd say, so a couple things on that. I don't know about coach against. How about coaching with? So, put Paul Brown at the top of the list. I would love to, even though I was able to spend some time around Coach Brown, both at Cleveland when I was really young and then at Cincinnati, when I was a teenager, and we went to their summer camps and stuff. But I would love to have done that. I know Coach Verzano, left Navy and went to coach with Coach Brown for probably that reason. Obviously Coach Hallis. But, I'd say I feel very fortunate to have coached against some of the great coaches, in our eras. Obviously coaching for Bill Parcells was had a huge impact on my life and my career. But, I'll count Coach Davis as a coach because he really was. Coach Gibbs, Coach Landry. Again, I was a coordinator there. Coach Walsh, when I was the defensive coordinator at the Giants, coaching against, some of those great offensive minds. Coach Shanahan, Mike Shanahan. We always had, a lot of trouble with him. And, on the defensive side of the ball, going against guys I had a ton of respect for, Bill Cowher, Marty Schottenheimer, of course, they're kind of from the same, tree. And then honestly, I put Jimmy Johnson up there probably at the top of the list. Just, what he did defensively at Dallas and then at Miami. And then, Dave Wanstack kind of followed that a little bit. But coaching against those guys was really, when I think back about it, how much I learned in preparing for them and getting ready to play them, they had a lot to do with making me, work harder and be better. But yeah, I would love to have coached with Coach Brown and Coach Hallis and Lombardi. Obviously throw Vince in there too. And I never really crossed over with them, at all. Well, I think, he really took the West Coast offense and it was so far ahead of his time, with the West Coast principles that Bill Walsh took and turned it into the West Coast offense. But, Coach Brown also was so innovative in so many other ways, whether it was the play calling, whether it was the cab squad, plays like the screen and draw plays that evidently he kind of stumbled into, but that was kind of the creative way that he worked was to, see things and figure out how it would disrupt the defense. I know Coach Landry was like that too. But yeah, I think that, and Coach Brown's just discipline, fundamentals. And really where I learned a lot about Paul Brown was from Jim Brown. And when I talked with Jim and we'd have a lot of conversations, Jim would refer to Paul Brown very frequently. This is the way Paul did it, or Paul did it a little bit different, or here's why Paul did it this way. Here's why Paul did it that way. And it really gave me a lot of insight from a player's perspective, into the way that Paul coached the team. I think that the rules have, shown certainly favoritism towards the forward pass. Back in the 60s, you look at those guys, great quarterbacks, Bart Starr and Unitas and those guys, throwing the ball 20, 25 times a game. I mean, now that'd be, reeling it in the first half. So, the game's changed quite a bit in terms of, how the rules are beneficial to the passing game and obviously, coaches and players have been able to take advantage of that. And even now where you get, so many passes that don't even cross the line of scrimmage, not just screen passes, but, RPOs, the sweeps out of the shotgun where the quarterback pitches the ball forward. It's really a handoff play, but it counts as a pass. But so when you look at all the passing plays that come from those plays behind the line of scrimmage, I think then when you add those into the running game, you see a much more balanced offense, but it actually statistically looks like more of a passing game. So I think what you've seen is a little bit less, call it intermediate type passing, that the West Coast teams like Coach Walsh and Coach Gibbs, people like that, used in favor of more of the quicker throws that are kind of more like handoffs. Well, sure. Yeah. I remember when we went down and played Houston in a preseason game with the Giants, and we had we were going against the run and shoot. We're out there running around with Johnny Cooks and guys like that, trying to match the guy. And we didn't have any sub defense, and obvious that we had much space to cover with guys that have the kind of speed and athleticism to match up out there. And that was a tough one. I mean, Bill and I really we had some great conversations about that we still laugh about. But we finally put the nickel defense on the field against these four receivers, and then of course we saw a lot more of that when I was in Cleveland, and we played Houston twice a year. But ultimately at some point you have to match your personnel with the offensive personnel, and I think that happened with Coach Cowher in Pittsburgh, that they eventually had to get out of their 3-4 blitz zone schemes and do more of it out of nickel, as teams started putting more faster and skill type players on the field. So to a degree, you've got to, feel like you got to match up with that, but maybe not go all the way, maybe not put as many as they have out there, but it's hard to just stay in base defense against, let's call it 4 good receivers, including the tight end. Yeah, well, again, depending on who the players are and who you're defending, that's always a key point. And then when you get to dime defense, for us, it's usually 3 safeties and 3 corners. So it's some combination of 3 safeties, but it also is 3 corners, depending on how you look at it. And you have a little more flexibility there. But a lot of our defensive backs really are interchangeable between the safety and corner position in terms of their responsibilities, especially the inside corner spot, that nickel spot. So. But it usually gives you a little bigger, more physical player that you can play in the box. You might lose a little bit in man-to-man coverage, but if you can play good zone defense with those safeties, then it just gives you a little more physical presence on the field. Whatever the rules are, we'll just play with them. But look, football is a great game, and it really started out very much as a kicking game where. Back when the game started, if you were inside your 10, you punted on first down. If you're inside your 20, punted on second down. If you're inside your 30, you punted on third down. And you didn't punt on fourth down until you had good field position and got the ball out, a little bit further. And, obviously all that's changed. But, the football, the kicking part of the game has always been an integral part of football and has for over 100 years. So I don't know if we want to change the game and take it out of that. Well, I've been very fortunate to, I feel like coach the best offensive player, best player in football in Tom, the best defensive player in football in LT, and the best special teams player in football in Matt Slater. And when you have the opportunity to coach players they're great in areas, and that of course includes the specialists, guys like Anna Vinatieri and Goskowski, and you don't want to take anything away from them either, but great punters like Landetta and Jennings and so forth. But the special teams coverage guys, and we've had a lot of them back in the Giants, with Renee Thompson and great returners like Meggett and Edelman and Troy Brown and all that. But as a core special teams player, Slater really is, I'd say been the best of all time, and I hope he gets recognized for that. But if you're a coach and you can coach Taylor, Brady, and Slater, that's 3 pretty good players. Well, I think in the kicking game, there's a lot of strategy involved in the kicking game. Between the kicking game and offense, that's really where the majority of the strategic plays come from. Defensively, you're reacting a lot to what the other team does in those situations. You have a lot of opportunity with the kicking game and what you can do from field position standpoint, just as 3 points here or there, changes a game, changes a season, changes everything. So, the ability to kick the ball, to handle the ball, and to, with the ball in your hands, returns, block kicks, all those kind of impact plays. I really kind of look at those as like bonus points, bonus yardage. You you can't count on those. You never go into a game saying, well, we're going to be able to block a punt for a touchdown. But if you can get one of those plays, then that 7-point, swing is statistically a huge difference. No different than a defensive score, a special team score kind of equates to that. So those kind of bonus points that you can get or bonus yards that you get, make a big difference ultimately in the points. And that's, that's the name of the game is those extra points. Well, I think I kind of saw how my career went. I started off working for nothing for the Colts, and I couldn't have been happier. It was the break of a lifetime to be employed by Coach Marcus Broda and the Colts, and actually be getting paid nothing. And then I got that big raise to $25 a week in training camp, and but it was all really about the experience. And we've had tons of them: Josh McDaniels, Matt Patricia. We go right down the line. All the people at Cleveland that, basically work for free, put in a lot of hard hours, a lot of hard work, for no pay, but for the experience, for the opportunity, all, let's say, have done pretty well for themselves. And I think that's really a good quality when you invest in yourself like that. Then it, has a way of paying off. And, so I've always kind of liked to promote from within. I've liked for people to come in and establish themselves, establish their work ethic, gain respect in the building for, their other coaches and players that, see what they put into it as the people did before them, earn that respect, and then, move up in the organization as they are able to, acclimate more experience. And that's always worked pretty well for me. And I said when I got to Cleveland, that's what I would try to do. Of course, I hired some experienced coaches there, but also some young people to train. We had very experienced coaches, like Coach Saban, and Coach Mitchell, and so forth, and then and young coaches like Scott O'Brien, and then many of the people that you mentioned, Phil Savage, and other guys that came up through the system that eventually came on, that went to have great careers. And I look back and think about the group of people we had working there in Cleveland. It was pretty, so I was very fortunate to have so many good people working for me. There was quite a few of those where somebody on the staff would kind of tell the person that was coming in to interview or whatever, look, if you get offered the job, don't ask about the money, just take the job and figure all that out later. But if you ask about the money, you're probably going to end up working somewhere else. So, either, and you were one in a long line of that, and so was Schwartzy, and oh man, we had a lot of Tom Dimitroff, Brown's crew, take off George Kakanis. I almost fired George Kakanis when he got in a car accident driving one of the players, that free agents we were brought into the airport. I guess it wasn't really his fault, but that we can't be getting in accidents with guys that we're bringing in for workouts. But yeah, no, we had we really had a good, good young group of people there. And, again, you guys all put in the time, put in the work, and, a lot of great careers came out of that time frame. As we all know, each club in this league is different. They each have their own, structure, dynamics, and personalities within each organization. And even though they're all kind of the same, I think they're all, very fundamentally different. And that's not good or bad. It is what it is. So, each organization makes their decisions on, who they hire and why they hire them and what they're looking for. And, some organizations like to hire, coaches, and then the general manager follows suit. Some hire general managers and then they hire the coaches. Some have different, other combinations of structure. So, it's really a pretty independent thing. I mean, I was very fortunate in Cleveland to have the opportunity to have, to be able to build a complete system, working with, Mike Lombardi on the personnel side, and, people like yourself and Schwartzy. And then on the football side of it, with Coach Saban, Scott O'Brien on special teams, Kirk Ferentz, people like that, and able to put it all together. And, unfortunately that didn't completely work out, but, I felt like by 94 we had, put together a pretty good football team or organization there, considering where it was when we started, and, really without free agency. So, that's changed the game tremendously. But, 96 was a big year for me here in New England, and developed a, great relationship with Mr. Kraft and other people in the organization. And so when the opportunity came in 2000, even though this team was nowhere near the team that we left in 96, it had, declined quite a bit. There were still some, a few pillars here that we could build with. And I'd say by 03, even though we won in 01, but by 03, that this was a pretty good football team, in all three phases of the game. And so it kind of took the same, basic 4-year window that it took in Cleveland. Again, we were fortunate to win in 01, but I would say by 03, 04, we had one of the better teams in the league. Well, in the spring, the plan's always kind of the same for these guys, is to bring them in, let them, learn how to be a professional football player in a New England Patriots. So that, encompasses a lot of things: how to study, how to train, how to prepare, how to, learn the terminology and communicate with your teammates and so forth. We'll work them at a number of positions, again, like we do almost all players at this point in time in the spring, and then narrow it down a little bit when we get to training camp. But, ultimately he's, most likely going to be a perimeter corner, but I think there are other situations where he could play inside or could play in the deeper part of the field, depending on what the call is, or how things present themselves from a game plan structure from time to time. And, when we go into the draft, we don't really target one guy, especially when you're, drafting, at whatever point. And need isn't as big of a criteria as, good football players. I learned that at the Giants, in 94, when we took Carl Banks, second pick overall. We had Taylor, obviously, and it was kind of like, why would we take another outside linebacker? And as it turned out, that was probably one of the better picks, that we had at the Giants. And certainly Banks did a lot to help Taylor. Certainly Taylor did plenty on his own. I'm not saying that. He was a great player, but having Carl on the opposite side of him, benefited both of them. And so, I don't think it's about where you need a player. If you got a good football player, nobody's ever going to regret that. And, I'm glad Gonzo was there. And, but, I think when you just go in and look for one guy and then he's not there, there's other players in the draft that can help us as well. So, but he's been great to work with, and look forward to getting him ready to go for training camp. Yeah, Jude's done a great job for us. We made him our highest paid player, so I don't think it was a situation where he was some big secret, and he had a lot of production for the Ravens. We've lost players like that in the past too, whether that was Tooney going to Kansas City, to be the highest paid lineman or guard or whatever it was, or sometimes you just can't afford to keep guys because of the structure and what and just the way it falls. So I don't think there were any issues with Judon. I think he would help any team. It just worked out that we maybe had a good opportunity, and financially we were able to compete for him. Yeah, well, my dad, at a pretty young age, of course, back in the day when my dad, went to Navy, I think he was making about $4,500, and there wasn't a lot of money in coaching football. There was other reasons why you got into coaching and playing, for that matter too. Salaries weren't really very big either. I remember my rookie year, or my first year with the Baltimore Colts in '95, the rookie salary was $19,000. So, that's a long way from where it was. So, I thought I would be going into business, and so I majored in economics in college, and I had a graduate assistant position lined up at NC State in 1975, and I was going to head down there and worked for Coach Lou Holtz at NC State. And in June of '75 was when Title IX was passed, and the openings that Coach Holtz had were reallocated to women in the athletic department. So I never got to that master's in economics, never got into that business world. And Coach Holtz was the first coach to hire me, and he was the first coach to fire me. I never set foot on the NC State campus. So I ended up with the Colts that year. And so I guess it would have been in some kind of business.